you very much. Thank you. Good evening. Hope you've had a good week and a bit of luck on the big race last Saturday. My wife and I placed our bets and then I drove her off to have lunch with relatives. She got the winner and the third, and I got a puncture. True. Following the 6 o'clock show's Cat Watch reports, I noticed 2 items of interest in the papers. There was Wilberforce, the official moggy at number 10 Downing Street for the past 14 years, who served under 4 prime ministers, and he's retired with an MBE, Mouse Basher Extraordinary. And a policeman in Sussex bent to have a close look at a stray cat, which turned out to be a crossbred polecat ferret. Very cross, as he discovered when it sank its fangs into his nose and dangled there for several minutes. And he was heard to say, "Now, don't do that, there's a nice pussy." Anyway, finally, any chefs who are watching may have been amused by the story of the turkey with the death wish which fell off the back of a lorry in Norfolk and wandered into a restaurant. And they might also be interested in a tip. This is a genuine tip for dealing with cockroaches. Now, what you do is that you mix sugar with yeast and you sprinkle it on the floor. The cockroaches gobble it up, the yeast rises, and they explode. So enjoy your supper as I tell you what's in tonight's show. As the trade war hots up, we discover how sad the Japanese would be if they had to pack up and leave. There's all the fun of the fair as we sample the big new Easter attractions. And we'll be finding out what happened when Stansted's lower third went on their annual outing. All this, of course, plus news of Danny Baker's visit to New Scotland Yard, where the police were helping him with his inquiries for a change. And Chris Tarrant is somewhere in Battersea on some cloak and dagger operation. Are you there, Chris?
Hello, Michael. Yes, I'm afraid I'm a bit tied up at the moment. I don't know, you can't have a walk through Battersea Park these days without being attacked by a marauding horde of Vikings. A bit later on, it's going to escalate in a full-scale bloodbath, apparently, probably mine. And we were going to do the ritual sacrificing of a virgin, but being Battersea, don't seem to be much chance of finding one. Join us again later on to find out what on earth we are doing. Join us again live.
I was born in Battersea. Anyway, our guest tonight is Brown, but then he always has been. That's what we're up to this evening. First, it's over to Paul Green and Tricia Ingrams for tonight's regional news.
Thank you, Michael, and hello. In the news tonight, calls for an inquiry after 3 train crashes at Victoria in 3 weeks, and the campaign to keep open the hospital that treated Mrs. Tebbit after the Brighton bomb.
Also, the part-time footballer who could play in tomorrow's FA Cup semi-final. And pantomime comes to the West End 8 months before Christmas.
But first, British Rail are under pressure from passenger groups who are demanding action after a series of similar accidents at Victoria Station. This morning, a packed commuter train ploughed into the buffers the 3rd time within 3 weeks. On March the 19th, 5 passengers were injured after their train failed to stop. A day later, 17 were hurt in a similar crash. BR say the incidents were human error.
The 718 from Smitham was packed with commuters from South London as it hit the buffers at Victoria's platform 15, injuring 1 woman passenger. Though the casualties today were slight, the passenger watchdog group, the London Regional Transport Passenger Committee, says BR must now reassure commuters after 3 potentially deadly accidents at Victoria in as many weeks. This morning's accident has set back Department of Transport plans to reveal the result of investigations into the last 2 crashes, both blaming human error. BR would like to see today's incident as an unfortunate coincidence following the crashes 3 weeks ago. But the rail service acknowledges that passengers are entitled to be worried.
Well, obviously we are concerned about the fact that we've had 3 incidents in a short space of time at Victoria. They are, of course, all being investigated quite individually, and 2 of them have, in fact, been subject of inquiries already. We're satisfied from the results of the first 2 inquiries that there has been no fault found with the braking systems of the 2 trains.
So how can you explain the 2 earlier incidents?
Well, obviously, the braking, whilst the braking on the train was satisfactory, there was a human failure.
And do you think it's likely that that's the cause of this morning's incident as well?
I can't say that at this stage. It's too early at the moment.
On Monday, British Rail investigators begin their urgent internal inquiry into this morning's crash at Victoria. It remains to be seen if it too will be attributed to human error when the report lands on Department of Transport desks. Eddie Barrett at Victoria.
The latest AIDS figures show that London is now the worst hit city in Europe. Last month, of the 28 deaths throughout Britain, 25 of them were in the capital. It brings the total number of deaths in London to 290. Nearly 3,000 are AIDS virus carriers, while 567 people have developed the disease.
There were claims of jury nobbling today after two armed robbers were each jailed for 22 years at the Old Bailey during the trial of John Reed and Peter Mitchell for their part in a raid on a Brinksmat security van. Flying Squad Superintendent Duncan McRae applied to the court to protect the jury. It was claimed that the names of jurors had been made known and that members of an earlier jury had been seen in the same pub as relatives of one of the defendants. Defending solicitor Brian Rose-Smith denied that any attempt had been made to use the jury list to influence the outcome of the trial.
Lucas CAV have announced the closure of their factory in Finchley with the loss of nearly 500 jobs. The works in Oak Lane, which produce pumps for diesel engines, will close next spring. The company blames declining orders. Workers who walked out this afternoon after hearing the news are to meet on Monday to decide what action they'll take. A campaign's underway to save the hospital where Norman Tebbett's wife was treated after the Brighton bombing. Margaret Tebbett, who was severely injured in the blast, spent a year being treated in the spinal unit of the Royal National Orthopaedic Hospital at Stanmore. Campaigners say it should be saved as it provides a unique and valuable service.
Patients, politicians and other campaigners gathered at a hall in Stanmore to launch a petition they hope will sway regional health authority chiefs. They're against a proposal the Royal National Orthopaedic Hospital should be moved to a new site 12 miles away. It's feared that if that happens, the team of top specialists gathered together since the place opened 65 years ago will be lost. But the cash-troubled Bloomsbury Health Authority, who are in charge, seem to favour relocation to a new general hospital development at Enfield. Campaigners say that would be closure by another name. They want a £50 million refurbishment of the existing site.
Inevitably, with any relocation, people would move and some of the team would be broken. It would again take years to actually rebuild that team spirit again.
The Save the Hospital Action Committee has united Harrow East Conservatives and Socialists. It's chaired by the local Tory MP, who claims cabinet support as well.
Don't assume that the government is in any way against our campaign. They're not involved. It's the health authority and the regional health authority's job to decide what to do and present proposals later this year. There are many members of the government who are very sympathetic to the Royal National Orthopaedic staying in Stanmore and supporting our campaign.
Our aim is to collect more than 100,000 signatures to pass to Mrs. Thatcher.
Campaigners are confident of victory. They already have a success behind them, preventing the closure of the hospital's accident and emergency centre. But they're confronted by their toughest task yet. Mark Wadsworth at Stanmore.
The parents of a teenage boy who was stabbed to death last year are stepping up their campaign to arrest the growing number of knife attacks in London. An exhibition of dangerous weapons that they want banned will be opened by David Owen, leader of the SDP. On Monday, more than 50 other MPs are expected to attend.
Why? That was the despairing question asked by the parents of 17-year-old John Dennison when they heard he'd been stabbed to death. And why is the name they've given to an organisation which aims to prevent young people from carrying offensive weapons. Heaven knows there's a big enough selection readily available by mail order and through specialist shops. Just a few particularly vicious examples are viewed here by members of the Stepney-based organisation.
Is this the one that goes under the market name that because you can't get your knuckles in, right, it's not an offensive weapon, is that?
Yeah, you can't use that as a knuckle duster.
You try it, come on.
It's got that in the gun mark.
I don't know, Bill, I think this one here, it really tops the lot of it. They advertise this as a Rambo knife. I'm just wondering when somebody's going to stop making films like that, which I think titillates the kids.
Knife bins where youths can dump weapons anonymously is one idea the group have come up with, and more stringent controls on who can get their hands on what.
Why should we have young 10-year-olds walking past a shop displaying 100+ knives, and the kid stands there with his nose pressed against the window, is fantasising, all the 24 quid Rambo knives. He can't afford it, so he goes home, mum's bread knife will do. If that window was painted black, he wouldn't see it and he couldn't start that fantasy, right? If we license the shop, this will go on a bit, but if license the shop, over 18s only. Anyone under 18 caught in there, bang goes the licence.
The Why campaign also aim to combat what they see as the glamorising of violence. They say even computer games these days feature the obligatory blood and steel in their adverts. Paul Lusman in Stepney.
A trusted home help has been jailed for life at the Old Bailey after she set up a robbery which resulted in the murder of an 82-year-old woman. Jill Cording introduced her lover Keith Hawthorne as a plumber, who then attacked and beat to death Rose Bleicher. She was left dying as the couple went on a spending spree with her chequebook.
A schoolboy who killed a man who'd sexually assaulted him was put into care by a judge at the Old Bailey today. Dennis Fraser was beaten and stabbed by the boy who'd suffered months of torment after the assault. Judge Michael Underhill said the boy, who cannot be named, was victim to abnormal stress and punishment would not be appropriate.
The Alliance have been celebrating an historic victory in Lewisham. The SDP candidate Tom Fowler is the new councillor for the Downham ward, taking a seat that's been Labour for more than 50 years. He took 40% of the vote.
Europe's largest optical department store has been opened in Colindale by one of Britain's most famous spectacle wearers, actress Sue Pollard. It's now 2 years since the laws over who could sell glasses were relaxed, and already the public's said to be seeing a better deal.
I can see clearly now, the rain is gone. I can see all obstacles in my way.
Under the new regulations, you can still have your eyes tested free under the NHS by a registered optician. Then you can take that prescription with you and have it made up wherever you like. Hundreds of shops have sprung up, offering all manner of frames. The Federation of Ophthalmic and Dispensing Opticians say thanks to the increased competition, prices are now lower than they were 6 years ago.
I think the public now are getting much more information about prices. They're getting offered a much wider range of choice, and I think they're getting good value too.
Which brought an extra sparkle to the eyes of spectacular actress Sue Pollard, who opened the biggest glasses store in Europe. One novel service there is a video, so you can see what the frames look like. You record as you try them on and play back wearing your own glasses. The avid collector can easily get quite carried away. Sue already owns 26 pairs. Now she's planning to design her own range.
I should probably open my own one, probably in about the year 2097 when I'm dead. And then nobody can blame me if they don't like them.
Spurs and Watford are preparing to do battle in tomorrow's FA Cup semi-final. Tottenham will be pinning their hopes on Clive Allen, who's already scored 44 goals for the club this season. But Watford will be putting their hopes on a new goalie, Gary Plumley, plucked from the relative obscurity of the Welsh Football League. He looks like replacing regular Steve Sherwood and Tony Coton, who were injured.
Gary Plumley was taking lunchtime orders at his South Wales wine bar when the call came to join the Watford party training in Shropshire. If Sherwood's finger injury rules him out, Plumley will make the daunting step up from non-league football with Ebervale into the spotlight of an FA semi-final.
Well, obviously I was very excited about it, but it's like a dream come true. But I immediately had to try and control myself because I right from the start I presumed that I was going to play, and it was the only way I could be. And if I hadn't prepared myself mentally for it, and I got the phone call on Thursday saying I'm playing, or I've got to join the team, then I think I would have been a bag of nerves. But as it happens, I've got over all that now, and I'm looking forward to hopefully playing on Saturday.
The final decision on whether Gary steps into First Division goalkeeping will be made tomorrow morning. Simon Neve with Watford Football Club.
The festive season has already hit London's Theatreland, even though for most of us spring has only just arrived. The London Palladium have just announced their pantomime for Christmas, a multi-million-pound production of Babes in the Wood, starring comedians Cannon and Ball.
April might seem a bit early to be thinking about the annual panto, but if a theatre wants to get the top names, early planning is essential. That's why comedians Cannon and Ball got dressed up as highway robbers. They're playing the baddies in the Palladium's new production of Babes in the Wood. Cannon and Ball have played panto often enough before, but this will be their first time in the West End. But even here on stage, they won't be abandoning entirely their television image.
There's nothing new about the robbers. We just play two robbers, but we play Cannonball playing the robbers.
Yeah, there's something new about the robbers, isn't there? Yeah, there is.
What?
He's the good robber.
Yeah.
And I'm the bad one. We're supposed to be both bad. But cuddly ball here can't be the bad robber because, it wouldn't work.
Don't you mind being the baddie?
Not really. Not really. Because at the end, it all works out all right at the end, So, I mean, I don't mind... I get the kids going and get them booing.
Booing and hissing him.
It's great. Until they start throwing the boiled sweets and ice cream cartons at me.
Mind, I get them going behind him because I'm like that behind him.
The Palladium says it'll spend about £1 million on Babes in the Wood, but will still aim to keep ticket prices affordable for the average family. No wonder Cannonball and the girl in the middle look pleased with themselves.
Following all the rain that we've had lately, the weatherman's being cast as a baddie too these days, I think. And I have some bad news again for you tonight. There's more rain on the way. But the good news is that most of it'll come in the night, starting this evening, though. Now, the feature of tonight's satellite show is that the cloud coming along from the west is in definite bands. One lot going through at first there is the showery weather of last evening and into the night, and then a clear weather that came over us during today, and you can see tonight's rain cloud approaching from the west there now. Now, there's more clear weather to come behind that for tomorrow, though. Tonight, then, well, it's going to be dry at first, but there is rain in the offing. It'll soon get into places west of London and right across the region to the east coast by late evening. It'll clear up during the night, though, not too cold in the night as well. Tomorrow, a bright day, some sunshine at times, a few showers possible, though, in the late morning and afternoon, and a colder day than today, quite a blustery, cold wind blowing up. And here's the good bit. Sunday looks dry, bright, and it also looks a little bit warmer than tomorrow will be, so it'll wind up quite good. Paul.
Well, a piece of good news to end on. Well, that's about it for now, and we'll be back on Monday with more regional news. Until then, from all of us in the newsroom, have a good weekend, and here to kick it off as usual is Michael Aspel.
Thank you, Paul, with the tighter match. Very smart. Well, folks, welcome back. For one person, this week saw the culmination of years of effort. Magician Stacey Lee has been trying to join the magic circle ever since she was old enough to saw a man in half. But they always turned her down because she wasn't a man, like the rest of them. But on Monday, the magic circle voted once again on her membership. Now, has Stacey finally become the first ever woman member of the magic circle? Jo Monroe is with her now.
Right, well, tell me, Stacey, how did it go?
Well, they had a worldwide vote and it was decided that it was 57% against letting women in and 43% were for it.
Why don't they want women in the magic circle?
I don't know. Basically, they think that women can't keep secrets.
Oh, that's absolute rubbish. But you're going to show us a trick now, aren't you?
That's right. I'm going to use you. What I'd like you to do is to sit down.
Fine.
The reason I'm using you, Jo, is because it's a new trick and I haven't done it before.
Oh, is that the reason? Oh, how
but
lovely.
Don't worry, because I've got my instructions with me.
Oh, I'm so instructions. Oh, good.
Now
That makes me then. feel so much better. I know what you're laughing about. Well, yeah, go on.
From what I remember, what you've got to do is to pour some milk into this cup. Whoops, a little bit too much, but yes, I think...
What do I do? I drink this?
This will do. I'm not sure. You might get covered in it, but I'm not too sure. Where are we? Oh, yes, I remember you do something like...
Oh, blimey, no.
That. What do I do next?
No, don't do this to me, Stacey, please. Look, they spent hours trying to do me hair. Please don't... Oh, no!
Number 6. Do not remove this card under any circumstances.
Oh, please, God.
Oh, well, who wants to see it get wet?
Thank you.
OK, then after 3, I'll take it off. 1, 2, 3.
That's really big. Oh, no. I think I'll hand back to you, Michael, on that. Thank you very much. Oh.
Very nice. Keep at it, Stacey. Danny, we meet at last. Any magic moments for you this week?
Hello, Mike. Miles away from it. Well, the national you mentioned earlier on, that small tale of all. I won and I lost because having the 2 children there, don't you know, plus Wendy, and Wendy's sister Carol's over, so all the people you have to put bets on for, so technically you've got to win £750,000 to get your money back, haven't you? Well, we actually lost everything, except we had 3rd, but I didn't know, because it's pronounced Lena Nor, but it's spelt Leanne Ann Agadi, so I didn't listen for it all the way through and chucked it away, because Leanne Agadi didn't come in, but Lena Nor actually did.
It's a sad story. And Mr Baker never ran at all.
Never ran at all.
Well, now, as we are a news and current affairs programme, for our first report. For years, the government has moaned about the Japanese not buying enough of our goods. Nobody took much notice until last week when a bit of sabre-rattling by Messrs Thatcher and Reagan prompted the largest one-day fall in stock markets the world had seen for years. This week, Maggie sent one of her ministers to Tokyo and threatened to heave a few Japanese firms out of this country as an example, unless things improve pretty sharpish. Well, would the Japanese community here actually be sorry to leave, dear old Brighty? Emma Freud pops the question.
Hello, and welcome
Welcome to downtown Cambridge Circus. Where else? This is a sushi bar, and along with their own newspapers, schools and clubs, the Japanese have created everything they could ever want right here in London. Now, with all this, you might think that if they were ever sent back home, there's nothing in England they'd really miss. But that's where you'd be wrong, because there's a lot of things right here in Britain the Japanese would be heartbroken to leave behind. For this group of Japanese students over here to study hairdressing, London is the place to be.
I think maybe in London it's more fashionable and then more wider than the other country.
More witty?
And more wonderful.
Oh.
I think.
What, being in London is more wonderful than being in Tokyo?
Yeah, I think so.
You're going to be cutting this hair just above.
They've only been here a few months, and already they've become very attached to some traditional British customs.
Or for example, I usually walking, and sometimes I push a door, and another gentleman after you, like this. Yes.
And you like that?
Yes, I like. I go to pub.
To what do you?
Pub.
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 B-U-B.
Pub. Do you like them?
Yes. Especially Guinness.
And when they've been here a few years, the Japanese develop quite a taste for foreign cuisine.
Fish and chip for dinner tonight.
The Tamai family have lived in Finchley for 3 years, and during this time they've got used to eating certain British dishes which now they just couldn't live without.
Fish and chips and roast beef, lamb.
Ram?
Lamb. Sheep. Lamb.
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 The Japanese also love our British golf courses because in Japan, greens like these are very few and far between. And once they're over here, they get very excited discovering all sorts of new outdoor activities.
Rugby.
Rugby?
Wales or England, Scotland, rugby. 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 I like rugby.
Now, you can understand why the Japanese here go for things like whiskey, beef and golf. It's all very civilised. But there's one thing that they really go nuts about, and you'll never believe what that is. DIY. It's not really part of the Japanese culture to do it yourself, but once they get a taste for it, there's no stopping them. Mr. Takeshi Kino.
For instance, my biggest project was I laid mosaic floor or parquet floor, entire my ground floor last year. Took 3 months, but I'm very much proud of it. Also, like wallpapering or painting, you know. Or even I can do some electrical job, the wiring, that sort of things. I learned everything from the book.
Love me tender, love me sweet, never let me go. You have made
Even in that most Japanese of enclaves, the Cambridge Circus sushi bar, the old Western influence still shines through.
love me tender, love me true, all my dreams fulfill. For my darling, I love you, and I always will.
Well, be fair, I don't know many Japanese songs. We'll be back after the break with a report on London's gangland. Now, there's an offer you can't refuse. See you soon.
And why are you recording it? Is it for me? Is it for Mike, for Joe? No, it's for them shots that go across the audience. You can put your pause buttons on and go, here. That's us. That's us. I did that, and you nearly did. You know, I was on News at 10 the other week. Not, you know, we was filming at the same place News at 10 was. And I'm waiting for all our cameras and stuff to turn up. All our cameras, our camera to turn up. And stand outside this place, and there was this interview in News at 10 going on the front. And later on that night, we were still out, and somebody said, "Here, you're on the news. Look, standing in the back." And I've come and I've gone, "Oh, hey, you know, that's me in the back there." So later on that night, I thought it'd be on News at 10 again, because that was on the 5:45 one. So I got a tape out, and I thought, "Oh, I'll get this." And then I thought, I'm on telly all the time. And I'm going, "Look, that's me on News at 10 here." And only Wendy said, "Yeah, you're on all the time. What are you talking about?" You get so I'm quite understanding it. But, yeah, and I'm under no illusions why everyone does tape it. You keep it for ages as well, until on comes a good film, and you think, what can I go over? What can I go over? Oh, I'll do that 6 o'clock show. That'll do. Yeah.
That's a very nice shirt you're wearing, Danny.
Oh, yes, the Japanese man in that film had the orange and brown version of this one.
It's very nice.
I suppose he had to get himself the large one. Medium does me, of course. Oh, shut... Tugged about... It's only about 5.
Oh, no, not your hairy chest,
Yes,
Danny.
yes, my hairy chest.
Heaven forfend, all 3 of them should come out.
I know, I sat down again now, so that's your whack.
It's the only person I know who lies in a grow bag.
What?
He looks younger. I'm trying to work out why you look younger. Is
What?
it because you're...
I haven't had a drink for 3 weeks. Scrappy, shut up.
Oh, steady.
Shut up.
That wouldn't be Tony
Hang
Pratt
on,
from the
look.
Daily...
Welcome back, what fun we're having. Nearly 4 years on, the brains behind London's biggest ever robbery, the £26 million Brinks-Mat gold bullion caper, still haven't been brought to justice. And this week came a newspaper report that the police do know the family that masterminded the job, but just don't have the resources to nail them. The gang are apparently typical of today's super crooks. Low profile, elusive and impossible to trap without extensive and expensive police surveillance. All a far cry from the days of the Cray and Richardson gangs of the 50s and 60s who loved publicity and never seemed to be off the front pages. Now, has the headline-grabbing supervillain gone for good? Danny Baker reports.
In there someplace is the man responsible for plotting the downfall of London's super crooks. He's Brian Worth and he's Deputy Assistant Commissioner for Organised Crime. And these days he's finding the crimes and the criminals themselves very organised indeed. And there's one small area south of the river that's occupying much of Mr. Worth's attention at the moment.
I suppose in the area I'm talking about, Rotherhithe, Bermondsey, that area, I could point to 10 or 15 really major criminals who, in a sense, were spawned here, grew up together, went to school together, cooperate together. 1 or 2 have been successfully prosecuted, by the way. It is an area which has, as I say, produced some spectacular robbers and major criminals.
But knowing where to look is the least of his problems. Tracking down and nailing a modern super crook is a long and costly process. At £2 grand a day for surveillance, the police can't afford to spend too long targeting their men. And they're after very elusive customers these days.
Your modern major criminal in this country who's into organised crime and illicit associations keeps a low profile. Doesn't mean to say he hasn't got his enjoyments, and doesn't mean to say he doesn't buy a good house and live well. But he doesn't try and attract attention. I mean, if you go back to the 60s, part of the situation there was that some of our major criminals who were territorially based were outrageous in their activities. They had a sort of macho image, they attracted attention.
Yeah.
That's very largely gone. They have a much more businesslike approach to crime now.
20 or 30 years ago, you didn't have to be a villain yourself to know who the Cray twins or the Richardson brothers were. The Crays, in particular, loved publicity and having their picture taken with famous people. But the Crays and other gangsters from their era also had an aura about them. Writer Justin de Villeneuve.
It was enormously glamorous. It was glamorous. They had the suits and they were generous, they had the money. There was glamour. It was easy come, easy go at the time.
Yeah.
I mean, there are guys around who make enormous amounts of money, which I don't want to talk about here, but they're faceless people. You know, they're, quite rightly, they're very low profile, and so it's a different thing. It's a different ball game now.
This is North London, and inside this pub is Noel Flanagan and a couple of his mates having a beer. Now, you might not know Noel Flanagan, but believe me, back in the 60s, he was known as the knife man of the Cali.
Noel never thought he'd find himself agreeing with the police, but he has to admit villainy just ain't what it used to be.
Really, I don't like the scenes they do.
At least in his day, he and his mates like Ronnie Diamond, a former gang leader, and Terry Appleby reckon they kept a certain sort of order.
And people had respect. You know, they'd say, come out and have a drink and whatever. No fights, really. Nothing like that, was it, Ronnie? No.
And if somebody did get out of order, were they soon told?
Well, they never did, funny enough. They never did.
And they had their standards.
If you see an old lady on a crossing, you would help her across the road. Kids today don't do that.
Yeah.
They would probably take her bag and push her into the road. But that never happened years ago.
There was a lot of old girls mugged years ago, let's face it. It was doing that years. That's been happening for years.
It was called rolling. Then.
But they pulled a handbag, but they never really slung the old girl and punched her.
But Noel and his mates seem to know their time has come and gone. And the faceless Mr. Biggs that rule today's underworld needn't worry that they're going to come back and haunt them.
Big question. Could you take the pace in today's sort of underworld? Would you be able to still?
But me personally?
Yeah.
No, I don't think so. I suffer with arthritis and all that, and I've got an injury which I sustained a few years ago.
How did you sustain this injury?
I was shot.
Was you?
Well, our guest this evening may not be a gangster, but he's certainly played one in the film Mona Lisa. It's the menacing Joe Brown. Yeah. Good to see you.
Great.
Now,
Hello.
Joe, you were brought up in the East End and you brought a lot of the family with you. But how were gangsters regarded then when you were a kid?
Heroes, mate. Well, we had a bookmaker, it was illegal round, and Mr. Mead, his name was, right? Now, note the Mister. I mean, no one else was called Mister. He was a great toff. Mr. Mead always wore a nice trilby hat. But I was watching your film there. Who was the bloke that you were driving round with?
I'll leave it, it's bad.
No, who was he?
Driving round me, man, he's the assistant detective inspector of organised crime.
Well, there you go. Now, that says it all to me. He says all about England. That's lovely. He's driving around in a big six-seater German limousine.
Ah, that belonged to Danny. That was Danny's
car.
Well, you should be ashamed of yourself. Terrible. The East End's not what it used to be.
That's just what I was going to say. Things ain't what they used to be.
I mean, Ronnie Cray, I think it was Ronnie or Reggie Cray, actually, when asked a quote on this, said, I can't believe it, he said. Things today, I can't believe it. He was really genuinely upset.
Shocked.
And what those... Shocked, yeah. Shocked. But what those guys were saying there is that, I suppose, there was a certain amount of respect. But they had the same respect for the police as well.
So times have changed?
Well, I just think that there's a tremendous lack of respect all round myself.
Were you tempted to join, though, as a young fella?
What, the police?
No. The other side.
Well, I was joined by birth, as it were.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I mean, where we used to live, round here we go. Well, we were kids, we had nothing. But where we used to live, and we was up to all sorts of fiddles, you had to be, you know. And that was it. You didn't... If somebody got caught for doing something, then it was, oh, did you hear about... Oh, my God, he's got caught.
What did you do?
Me?
Yes.
Oh, all the fiddles, you know. I used to live in a pub, actually, and, you know, it was my family's pub, like.
Yeah.
And I used to pass the bottles over the back wall
The empties?
The empties, and my mate would go around the front and get the money back. It wasn't so much robbing your family, it's more of a distribution of wealth and a small handling charge for me mate. Just like VAT, really, but there you are.
It's funny, though, because I've got a friend who's a Sicilian, and you talk to him about the mafia, and he won't condemn it. He says, what are you going to do? Don Chicho says, what are you going to do? And that's it.
What about the guy on the film who's sitting there with the big dark glasses and advising the trouble with the villains today is they're faceless?
Right then, we'll get on with the show. Oh, what is this? A hand with a body at the end and a piece of paper. It is a late news flash. It says here, William the Conqueror has been attacked in the Essex village of Stansted. There was fierce fighting as Saxon warriors laid siege to Mount Fitchett Castle, where the king was resting on his way north to Cambridge. Well, I say a late news flash because this event actually took place last Tuesday. 500 Saxons took on a few score Norman warriors who were holed up in the castle, but most of them were less than 4 feet tall, and they had to skip maths and RE to be there. They were school children from all over Essex and East London who were reenacting the battle at millionaire Alan Goldsmith's replica Norman castle. The 6 o'clock show's war correspondent Joe Monroe sent us this report.
It's 900 years since sleepy Stansted was last roused by battle. But this week, it was once again a village at war. Hundreds of warriors gathered for the 1987 Battle of Mount Fitchett Castle.
What we do want is an attack that is disciplined and that there's no real hand-to-hand fighting.
Unfortunately, the warriors had other ideas.
Come out and fight! You Saxons, go!
Inside the castle, the defending Norman troops were prepared to go to any lengths to protect their king, William the Conqueror, alias Mr. Crossley, the PE teacher.
Come on, you Saxons, Stewie!
Now, what are you going to do if you capture an enemy? What would you do with one of them?
Put them in, throw them in the torture chamber.
And then torture chamber, just leave them there to rot.
Yeah. Let the rats get at them. Well, they have the thing where you hang them upside down and the blood rushes their heads and they die within a couple of things.
Outside the castle, the attacking Saxons were feeling just as bloodthirsty.
What would you do to a Norman if you caught one?
Kill him! Kill him!
But it's difficult to be very ruthless in the pouring rain when your sword's made out of cardboard.
That's not going to get you too many Norman heads, is it?
Yeah, this is.
I mean, look at that.
This is.
And so the time came to pick up the trusty blade, bent or not, and set forth unto battle.
Punch the man in the head.
You didn't.
Did you kill him? Yeah, he didn't die.
The whole idea was for the children to live as Normans and Saxons for a day. Mostly it was great fun, except that is when it came to dinner time. Because after a hard morning's battling, the last thing you want is a bowl of 11th century gruel.
You've left quite a lot.
Well, I don't like it.
What's wrong with it?
I don't know, I just don't like it.
What would you rather eat?
Pizzas and things like that.
Pizza. I don't think they had pizza in Saxon times, did they?
No.
After a quick visit to the genuine Saxon Portaloo, the troops returned refreshed to the battle. The Normans had been pinning their hopes of breaking the deadlock on their giant catapult.
3, 2, 1.
A giant flop. In fact, the Saxons look like changing the course of history and capturing William the Conqueror. So the grown-ups stepped in and ordered the battle be decided by a fight between two champions. And so as not to rock the historical boat, the Norman won. Boring.
And that was the Battle of Portaloo, and they all had the rest of the week off with colds. It's a good way to do your history, though, isn't it? Don't you think?
Yeah, better than learning dates, isn't it?
Yeah, that's just...
It's still violent, isn't it, eh?
It was a bit.
Get the sword. Who was that hanging up? It wasn't Tarrant, was it?
Well, that comes a bit later on.
Oh, I see.
Did you ever do that kind of stuff at your school?
It was one big battle, start to finish. No, we didn't actually do that, no. I mean, at school, I thought history was a waste of time.
Yeah.
But then, after I left school, I became really interested in it. So it wasn't really a waste of time, it's just that I don't think they taught it to us properly.
So what's your period for mastermind, then?
Oh, I wouldn't dare go near that, mate. No, I like the late Victorian period, Sherlock Holmes and all that.
Oh, I was born in the late Victorian period. So, I'll tell you all about it. In a moment, we shall be offering some ideas on what to do with the kids over Easter, plus news of something really breathtaking. Back soon.
All the fire's gone
Got
out.
the fig leaf in place, Danny? A very small fig leaf. Oh. Good ear, innit? I think you look very smart, by the way. You take no notice. I think you look gorgeous. You don't listen to Danny. Great sartorial elegance over there.
That's one of the best things I've ever heard.
Danny's just jealous.
And it had to be bloody Danny for it.
It's gin.
Well, it's interesting.
So I haven't put any tonic in, though, because I don't like to mix my drinks, you know. Oh. I thought you had your flasks under your chairs. I thought you were all leaning a bit to the left. I thought, hello, the scotch is out. I thought, they're off.
You know what, Danny? Every week, Danny gets up in the breaks and he walks up and down all the time. It's not because he wants to entertain you, it's because he's got terrible piles. But, I can say that because he's not here. Oh, sorry, Danny.
Oh, look at the... What have you got?
Turn round, Danny. Look.
Danny?
Turn round. There. I said he had piles. Look at that.
Aluminium one.
Yes.
I've had a rock bottom. That's ridiculous.
Hello again. It's the Easter Halls next week, and if you've got kids, there comes a time, usually about 7:30 on a Monday morning, when you wish they were somewhere else. And Joe has got a few suggestions.
Thank you, Michael. Now, I thought we'd put a nautical theme into this week's What's On. For starters, over in Tulse Hill tonight and tomorrow night, the Tulse Hill Boys' School are putting on a production of Moby Dick. An ambitious undertaking, as the Moby in question is a 60-foot white whale. Now, Tulse Hill somehow managed to do it without a drop of water in sight. Now, don't be late, because the production only lasts for 15 minutes. That's Friday and Saturday night at Tulse Hill Boys' School. Tickets £1.50. And now, another maritime event, an auction of Titanic ephemera at the Park Lane Hotel.
Titanic, the ship, that is. Up for sale is this postcard actually written on the Titanic and posted during its stopover in Queenstown before it set off across the Atlantic. It's addressed to Master Tom Richmond. Dear Tom, it says, I'm having a good time on this big ship. Wish you would come with us. The other little gem in the sale is a photograph of an iceberg taken by another ship's captain 2 days before the Titanic sank. Now, there it is. That'll set you back over 500 quid because it just might be the one that sunk the Titanic. Then again, it might just be a 75-year-old picture of an iceberg. Anyway, that's the Titanic sale at the Park Lane Hotel Wednesday at 6 o'clock p.m. And finally, something for Easter Sunday, the Easter Parade in Battersea Park. Now, it starts at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. The organisers promise an appearance by the original African Queen. As it says here, she will be lowered into the river afterwards to steam off on her way back to Kew. And that's not all, as Chris Tarrant will explain. Chris?
Yes, hello, Danny. They're called the Valhalla Vikings. They're going to be one of the big attractions of the Easter Parade here at Battersea Park tomorrow. This is Jane Malcolm Davis. Yes, all right, very boring. But you're not normally Jane Malcolm Davis when you're dressed like this, are you?
I'm Rowan Hildy Bloodaxe.
Rowan Hildy Bloodaxe, of course you are. What's the great attraction of going around being a Viking at weekends?
The idea is that we want to promote a greater understanding of Viking culture.
Yes,
Rape and pillage.
No rape and pillage? I thought it was one of the main attractions.
No. The attraction,
Shut up!
The attraction for me is the fact that the women could fight.
The women could...
Yeah.
Will you stop it? Come back over here, Jane. Come back here. That's right. Who are these people? They're architects.
Okay, behind you is an accountant.
Yes.
Here we
an
have
accountant.
a software engineer, a design engineer. I'm a journalist. There's an architect and a student builder.
That's extraordinary. One of the biggest problems you think of being a Viking in the 80s is there a particular problem?
It's getting your sword on the bus.
Getting your sword on the bus. Yes,
yeah.
I can imagine. Well, can you imagine this bloke doing your VAT? Well, there you are. Tomorrow, Easter Parade, Battersea Park, Valhalla Vikings. Should be a pretty damn big event. We'll just sort of talk amongst ourselves. Don't stop that! Join us again.
Yes, the great thing about Chris is that he's such a good listener, isn't he? Anyway, if all that seems a bit too violent, Danny has a football match to recommend.
Yes, tomorrow Fulham play Chesterfield. So what, you may say? Well, it's a gala day for Fulham, and amongst the audience will be Diddy, David Hamilton, Jimmy Hill and Johnny Haynes. Now, for a few people out there who don't know who Johnny Haynes is, well, suffice to say he was the Maradona of his day and the darling of not only the said Fulham, but of England as well, as this clip will show you. Roll the film. Yes, and I'm joined by the scorer of those 2 goals against the Scots, Mr Johnny Haynes. Now, Johnny, right, and well-deserved too. I've got my kit on. Where's your kit, John?
I didn't realise the archives went that far back, Danny.
Yeah, that's it. I'm like a pudding like this, but I hope you brought a note and we get away with it. What is special about Fulham and Chesterfield?
Today Jimmy Hill and his new management team took over the running of the club, and you know, Fulham have been having a bit of a dire time lately, and if anybody can get him out of trouble, I think Jimmy will do it, because he's a born winner, Jimmy.
It's the rebirth of Fulham 1987, isn't it?
Well, we hope so. We hope so.
Yeah. Well, that'll be there at Craven Cottage tomorrow. To recap, that is Fulham against Chesterfield. That's Craven Cottage in West London tomorrow. It's 3 o'clock kick-off, and it may see him even back in the good old days, eh? Now, back to Michael.
Thank you, Danny. Thank you, Johnny. Lovely to see you. And if you still don't know what to do over Easter week, well, how about a theme park? They're big and booming business nowadays. Over the next week, the leisure parks, the zoos, fun fairs and theme parks will all be unveiling their brand-new attractions. Windsor's got a new water slide centre, Leeds Castle has reopened with a new aviary, and Alton Towers is launching a £6 million sky ride. Whatever happened to Crazy Golf? We thought we'd take a look at the latest thrills. Chris Tarrant went along for the ride, and he survived.
There was a time when fun fairs were just that. Nice, gentle fun for all the family. But not anymore.
The customers. It's new, it's fast, it's called Thunder River, and it makes you go, "Ah!" Or even, "Ah!"
Now, this little beauty was imported from Germany and doesn't open to the public officially till Sunday. But we road-tested Thunder River with a few volunteers from Charter School in Berkshire. The ride was designed for high summer and turned out to be decidedly chilly in early April. But that didn't seem to put our guinea pigs off.
Really wet and exciting, and you know, every corner something different happens every time you go round. It's not the same each time.
So you've been around 9 times, you're absolutely soaked, you're extremely cold, and that's your idea of a good afternoon out?
Yes, absolutely brilliant. This is a frightening thing.
Oh, this is the frightening thing, but I've been soaked, the cameraman soaked.
That's a fun!
This is fun, is it?
Yeah!
And the competition to provide the danger-loving public with ever more frightening rides is hotting up. These little beauties are knocking them dead in the States and may soon be turning up here. This is the Sky Screamer, where you have to leave sharp objects and your stomach at the top. And from deep in the heart of Texas comes greased lightning, which goes from 0 to 60 in 3 seconds. But some of these American inventions are a bit over the top for the more refined English market. Thorpe Park reckons that what the trade call white knuckle rides attract the wrong sort of clientele. It favours more traditional entertainments, and the staff here are recruited from a better class of person. Philip is only a jester at weekends. Monday to Friday, he's otherwise employed.
Now, I happen to know that in the rest of your life you have a very, very different job, don't you?
It's completely different, but I still meet lots of people. I work for the National Westminster Bank in Staines.
As the manager?
As an assistant manager, customer services.
But what do you do for those little hooligans who insist on a scare for their £5.50?
Oh, stop that there train!
Well, at Thorpe Park, they favour a more cost-effective way of putting the frighteners on people.
The dreaded evil curse of the black spot.
Oh, no! Not the black spot!
On Treasure Island, just 3 pirates aim to keep a whole trainload of kids terrified. Of course, the poor old pirates aren't really that ferocious. George studies drama.
Right, I found my little scallywag and his name be Oliver.
Cyril's a dental student. And Arthur, who's retired, is a pirate grandad. And far from being terrified, sometimes the audience let Blackbeard and his pirate band know what they think of them.
Well, yeah, we get the odd gallon of Coke thrown at us and things like that, which gets very sticky, but we can always swim in the lake afterwards, you know.
So, the highlight of a pirate's day is waving goodbye to that packed and screaming train.
Go on, let's go on, go on! Get away there!
Let's just hope the kids haven't bought a return ticket.
Very bloodthirsty show this week. By the way, Chris Tarrant made a slight mistake earlier. The Battersea Parade, of course, is on Easter Sunday. Well, he was having his head caved in at the time.
Very well, mistake, yeah.
Now, Joe, as a man with a pilot's licence, I suppose all these other things are a bit tame, aren't they, for you? What thrills you these days, if I dare ask?
It's all gone now. No, I like those white knuckle rides, actually. I heard him say the attracts the wrong sort of people, so I reckon you guessed that. But I went out to Disneyland once. I'll never forget Disneyland. That was fantastic.
Yeah.
The rides out there are a couple of what they call these white knuckle rides, but most of the rides out there, I mean, some of them are 15, 20 minutes long, and it's like themes. It's all themes. Like the Pirates ride, you go down, don't you?
Yeah. Pirates of the Caribbean.
And you go through this tunnel, and it's got this amazing 24-track music and real film stuff, not a geezer with an accordion, you know. And you come through it all underground, and you come all of a sudden into a vast lake, an underground lake bigger than this studio, with a full-sized galleon firing across your bows.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fantastic. It's absolutely
You pass
fantastic.
between the actual battle going on.
That's right. And
There's the other one, Space Mountain.
Oh,
you go up in there and it's got all the signs saying any adults with, you know, loose teeth or have heart attack, you think, oh, that's all fanny, that's just to wind you up. And you get into it and you go slowly up and you're inside this great big constructed steel mountain.
And it's all in the dark.
In the dark. And when you get to the top, it goes boom and fires you like a cork out of a bottle. And it all takes place, the worst scenic railway road you can imagine, in complete darkness.
Just with
and you don't know
stars and
what's happening.
meteors
It's terrifying,
coming
I
out.
They're
know.
building one outside Paris, you know.
There was a thing at Battersea Park
Fantastic.
called the rotor, which whizzed you around, and then it slowed down, and the girls' skirts came up, and the men screamed in agony. Anyway, that's all for tonight. My thanks to Danny and Joe and Chris, Blood Axe Tarrant, and of course to Joe Brown. We'll be back in 2 weeks' time. You'll fill in the time, I'm sure. A little more magic before we say goodnight. Have a nice weekend. Bye-bye. Smells milk as well, doesn't it? It really smells. Anyway, thank you very much, and to Johnny Hayes, and of course to Joe Brown for being our guest. You've been a terrific audience.
Yeah, right, mate. Thank you, Joe. You'll have a drink.
Yeah.
Right.
Wouldn't do it to win.